Mike Matchett of Small World Big Data, and I'm excited today to be talking about machine learning, one of my favorite topics, but how do you really democratize it and bring it to the data that you have, which really, honestly, is mostly sitting in relational databases. I have MindsDB. I have Jorge Torres, who's the CEO. We've talked a little bit before in the earlier days of MindsDB, but now they've got some great advances we want to talk about. And really, it's all about how do you bring machine learning to the masses of data that we already have, mostly sitting in relational databases. So with that introduction, Jorge, tell me a little bit about what's been going on with MindsDB lately.
Yeah, I think that you put it in the right terms. We want to leverage on the hard work that a lot of these companies have been doing to put the data into databases, to organize the data, to get to data maturity. So we believe that these organizations are ready to do machine learning. They have accomplished the most important ingredient, which is the data preparation side. And what MindsDB allows them to do is to do machine learning in SQL in a very similar way to how they treat their data today. So they can query models as if they were tables. They can train models as if they were creating views. And from there, we've learned a lot of things. I think that MindsDB, as an open source project, since last we spoke, has evolved quite a lot. I think that now we've accomplished what we consider open source maturity. 10,000 GitHub stars, large organizations using MindsDB, feedback from a very large community. And not only that, we're in this very interesting state where all these people are now writing integrations to MindsDB on their own so that they can plug their data to do predictions the way that we have simplified them for them.
All right, we're going to come back to this integration opportunity. Let's just focus just a little bit on the core thing this is doing. So I have a table of data in a database. There's a schema around it, or I have a couple tables, and I've just defined a view or a join among them. And what MindsDB really allows me to do is basically have a machine learning ability to interpolate or extrapolate the data in that table to either fill in gaps where I don't have data or to extend that out in time. And that's it. I don't really have to be doing all this other stuff that people think about with machine learning. I don't go out and do data extraction. I've already got it in the database. I don't have to do data cleansing. I've already got it in the database. I don't have to define the meaning of what I've got. That's defined by the schema that I'm already looking at. So I really get the benefits of machine learning without having to go through that whole data science workflow cycle, right?
Yeah, Mike, I think that you pitched it way better than I can. So at the end, everything that you said is true. And all I can say is that is the philosophy. The philosophy is to simplify it to the point that it feels as natural as possible if you're already used to doing and handling databases and not have to deal with like the different challenges that you traditionally have to do. As you pointed out, and I think that you pitched it in a better way that I will probably repeat, but there's painful steps on getting machine learning to production. And we try to identify what those steps are. Many of those have to do with unnecessary ETLing, again, given that your data is already in the database. And then many of those have to do as well with what do you do once you have a model and you need to deploy it. So MindsDB simplifies all of this process by making this abstraction of machine learning models as tables. And I think that the steps that you outline and the way that you describe it is on spot.
All right, so let's talk about the data itself then, and you mentioned integrations. So when you started this, you were looking at probably the common database like MySQL and MariaDB and things. As a couple of years have gone by now, though, you found the community saying, what if I also pointed this at X, Y, and Z? Tell us what some of those things are and what's coming out of that growing mass of integrations.
Yeah, I think that for us, the intuition was we're going to start with relational databases. And we started by building partnerships with the biggest players there. So the guys from MariaDB, the guys from ClickHouse. Later, we moved to data warehouses, data lakes. So we built partnerships with Snowflake, with Single Store. And at one point, we started to realize that we were the bottleneck of our own growth. People were asking, hey, I have data on IBM, I have data on Trino. And we are a startup, so we have like limited resources as to how many integrations of this ones we can write. At some point, one very important user of ours decided to make an integration to Trino, and essentially they said, well, if you show me how to fish, I will fish, and I will even contribute this integration. So they made the integration to Trino, and then we realized, well, actually, this process was very fruitful for us because we simplified the way that we build integrations. And now we have proof that a third party can write an integration end to end. And we decided to release this to the rest of the community beginning of last quarter or this quarter. And we've gone, again, it took us 3-4 years to write 15 integrations. And then in the span of like 3-4 months, we've more than doubled the amount of integrations that we have. And not only that, we started to realize that people have data behind so many different systems that are not necessarily relational databases. There's a whole bunch of data that is locked in behind APIs for SaaS services like Shopify, Xero, QuickBooks, etc. And then people are writing all this type of integrations that make it easy for them to do machine learning, and integrations that we were not even thinking about possible. So this is a very exciting time for MindsDB because we have accomplished one thing. We have accomplished the ability to simplify the ML workflows. And now we accomplish a second thing, which is incorporating the community in the evolution of MindsDB. Like, what direction is it going to take? And this opened the horizon for MindsDB to not just relational databases and data lakes. Now we cover a whole bunch of different data sources, including streaming technologies, again, data that is behind the SaaS. And in this journey, also people were asking, okay, well, I like your ML framework, and I think that for time series, you're outstanding, but I have many different types of problems, NLP, et cetera, where there are tools that I want to be using that are not necessarily MindsDB. Can you now open this door that you opened up for integrations to other ML frameworks? And then we realized, well, yeah, this is the natural step, because at the end, the way that we see it is all the people that made databases and data sources, they didn't do them designing it, or they didn't design them with machine learning in mind. And then you have all the people that build ML frameworks, and then they design them with the researcher in mind, but not necessarily with the production center in mind. And we can bridge these two worlds. So right now, there's an ongoing set of integrations that are happening for most successful and mature ML frameworks, like anything from Data Robot to H2O to Dataiku, to Hugging Face. And again, this is only possible because of the work that the community has done with MindsDB. And we now identify our place as this man in the middle for anything that has to do with machine learning and anything that has to do with data. And the abstraction that we have is simple enough that anyone can kind of like jump into that wagon.
Yeah, and I come from more of the IT infrastructure side of the business from years past. And when I see what you're doing for databases, it looks like you've really presenting a virtual layer, a virtual database in front of whatever data sources are behind it, so that someone interfaces with SQL to MindsDB, and you become just this intelligent platform location to marry all that data, and I just query you and ask the smarter questions, and again with the machine learning applied to it, so that you're interpolating and extrapolating and predicting on that data, not just giving me the data that exists, which I think is incredible value on there. And I'm excited because I didn't know you were extending from time series data out into the sort of like natural language processing and other model layers. Now we got to have you come back, Jorge, and explain how that goes. Maybe in a couple months when you got some examples to show us. If you're really interested in that. Let me ask you a little bit about where this goes as a company. So, open source, yes, but open source only takes you so far. On there, where's MindsDB going with helping the larger community? I mean, there's people who have big pocketbooks out there who I'm sure want to get access to your expertise.
Yeah, and I think that we try to not reinvent the wheel every time that we run into a challenge. And again, one challenge that any company has is, especially in open source companies, how do we now become a business that is going to be here to stay? Open source projects are hard to die once they reach the level of maturity that we have. So now we know that MindsDB is here to stay as a project. The next question for us is, can we build a profitable business around this? And I think that the journey that we like the most is, for instance, the journey of MongoDB, where they realize that people, if there's a managed version of MindsDB, people, or in the case of Mongo, if there's a managed version of Mongo, people will opt for that, because managing infrastructure is also a pain, and then you provide value by doing this. So a few months ago, we released the cloud version of MindsDB, and we're starting to see also a very impressive amount of growth there. And we realized that the more MindsDB understands the ecosystem and the more parts it integrates, also the harder it is to manage. So the approach that MindsDB has taken is similar to that of Mongo, in which, in terms of business development, cloud is the way to go. Now, there are large organizations that also are part of our community and they use MindsDB. And they're never going to go for a cloud version, but they go for a hybrid version. And I think that, for instance, Confluent and the guys from Confluent learned this early on as well. So the roadmap for MindsDB Cloud is a hybrid cloud. Essentially, you can deploy MindsDB in one of our clusters, and we charge you for that and at a very reasonable price. Or you can deploy MindsDB on premise, and we manage your clusters, in a centralized way and organized way. That is the avenue that we've identified to work, and we have customers now that use it, that use our cloud, customers that use it on premise, managed by MindsDB. So we're starting to also understand that this, not reinventing the wheel in that sense, but making sure that we adhere to that model was the right move for us. I think that the next thing for us is to leverage on all the partners that we built on the road to align with their agenda. At the end, MindsDB is a win-win proposition for them. Say, for instance, we have a lot of work going on with the guys from MariaDB, where they have, an incredible database, and we provide this incredible machine learning capability. How do we embed ourselves into their cloud in a way that is seamless to the users? Something that is coming soon, and we're doing similar work with a lot of the different partners that we have. So, long story short, MindsDB is a successful enterprise because of the open source, and there is a strategy that we didn't reinvent, or how do you build a successful business? And this is to have managed versions of MindsDB and making sure that it's very easy for people to get started.
I mean, the right takeaway here is that whether you are an open source fanatic and you just want to go download it, or you're allergic to just getting open source and you need it to be managed and have a contract, that's available. You're growing. You've got partnerships. You've got an exciting number of integrations there that's just growing again. And I think we could talk about, every integration you add is a nonlinear combination of data sources someone can leverage in this way, which is great. Tell me, and there's a lot going on here. Tell me if someone really wants to go get involved in this, wants to try it out, wants to do a little more. Where would you send them first if they're just saying, "Wait a minute, this sounds so interesting. I got to go push some buttons now."
Yeah, and the cool thing is that now literally it's a few buttons. You can go to cloud@mindsdb.com, and in 30 seconds you'd be ready to start. This is a huge milestone for us because even though, again, as you said, like you're hardcore open source, you can go and deploy it on Docker. You can do the traditional path. But if you want to get started in 30 seconds, you just have to go to cloud@mindsdb.com, and we've made it so that even learning about MindsDB is part of the experience. So as soon as you get into the cloud, we have like a quick walkthrough that will allow you to cement the concept of MindsDB within like no more than 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think once people see this and they realize they've got a relational database, and this just adds an extreme amount of value to that database once they start thinking about like, oh wait, I can ask predictive queries of that same data. I can ask extrapolation queries. I can ask interpolation queries. That's great stuff. I think they're going to really do that. So thank you so much for being here. And again, Jorge, come back when you can tell me a little bit more about that natural language processing models and some of the other things that you guys are doing. It's an exciting roadmap. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, coming back soon because it's actually happening in the next month or so. So.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that. All right. Thank you so much. And hopefully, guys, check it out. Cloud@MindsDB.